Hello everyone, Pallytime here. Welcome back to Diablo 4. I've logged on to the Sorceress just 42 minutes before the servers for the beta go down. I wanted to give my first impressions of all the classes, and I have one of the most positive first impressions of the Sorc. I leveled this class almost exclusively in co-op until like the last maybe 5 levels. I would say I hit level 20 in almost all co-op. And then that really made me realize just how much build variety the class has, because my girlfriend Holly was playing as a lightning sorcerer at the same time. My inventory is full. I'm not going to loot anything. All of this will be gone soon. Anyway, for instance, she got a legendary very early on that gave her increased damage to vulnerable targets, and she was running like a chain lightning build. She wasn't making targets vulnerable herself, so I started to look through our talent tree to see if I could provide vulnerability to enhance her build. And it turns out one of the easiest ways of making enemies vulnerable is with Frost Nova. As we were playing through the game a little bit more, I realized that Frost Nova is actually one of my most powerful spells for my own power spikes, because this is one of the best features about the Sorcerer, by the way. They can enchant any of their abilities. Any of them. Any of the abilities you see that I have unlocked here, or any that you unlocked, can be enchanted to have a different effect. For instance, I'm using ice shards. It's incredible. If I freeze a target with Frost Nova, or with my generator, if I freeze them eventually, I just fire off my spender for free, which I can only shoot 3 of those off at a time. So the fact that I'm getting them for free is crazy. And then the fact that Frost Nova can lower its own cooldown, so I'm not only making enemies more vulnerable for me to deal damage, but then also getting more ice shards out. It just cascaded. And this is just one example of an enchantment that brought my build together. Radically brought my build together. I have another example recorded. I don't know if that'll be released yet, but I wanted to try a summoner source video, and it was great. I just used ice blades with its enchantment to get more cooldown reduction. Really, really fun combinations. So your talents are not where the depth ends with Sorc. You also need to think about your enchantments as well, which is pretty cool. And another thing that's crazy strong about these, before I forget, you could just change these on the fly. You could change these mid-combat for different effects if you wanted to. Say you're going up to a boss and you want a different boss effect, boom, there you go. Now, as far as the overall feel of the tree, I like all of the generators for the Sorc. They all have different themes. Frostbolt leads into a frost build. Firebolt leads into a fire build and does some damage over time. Arclash chains lightning around the room a little bit. I enjoy all those. I don't enjoy all of the spenders. I think Fireball is really good. I think Ice Shards is really good. And I'm a fan of Chain Lightning. The other ones I don't really care for. But at least you still have strong options as you're going down into your spenders. Now, this is where I think things get a little more diluted. We are probably not going to see a lot of mages that stick to a single school of magic like I am in this video, because teleport's really good. I could really use teleport. There'd be nothing wrong with me getting teleport, even though it's a lightning skill. That mobility would be very, very valuable. If you are playing a lightning Sorc and you need to get melee range for your chain lightning, then it makes sense for you to also pick up the ice barrier just to make sure that your character is protected. So when I gave my first impressions of the druid, I really thought it was cool how strong the lines for each of the themes were. I don't think Sorc is necessarily that unified in its themes. I think you can mix and match with the different elements and it would be totally fine. And as we get into the higher levels, I am noticing that there are more enemies that have a specific elemental resistance. For instance, if you're fighting an elite that does frost damage, odds are he's going to also take less damage from frost. I'm not particularly geared out on this character, although it may seem like it. But that being said, I have not really run into too many issues where like a Frost Elite was unkillable for me. He took maybe just another couple of seconds. That could continue to change as we get into the late game, and we may need more of a variety of spells to encounter those very scenarios. But yeah, I mean, we just killed an Elite there. Now I'm completely immune to damage, and we just killed another one there. Thanks, Splash Shrine. You're great. The strength of the Frost build is not only do you have this incredible burst damage, but you're also building your character in a way that you get defenses at the same time. And I don't think that should be overlooked. The fact that I gain benefits to my right click when I have a barrier active means that I want to keep my Frost barrier active. And if my Frost barrier is active and I'm dealing damage to frozen targets, I'm increasing the amount of shielding I get from that barrier. Of course, we already talked about the great effectiveness of my Frost Nova, but freezing enemies is the reason I'm able to pop off with that extra damage. Those guys literally can't move, and that enables me to be stronger. Fire Sorcs can just spread dots literally across the entire screen. Electricity Sorcs can like get this charged lightning thing and couple that with the summon, and you're basically just literally the entire screen is electrified the entire time. The theming of this class is very over the top. It's very visual. I think they nailed it. And then if we look all the way down to the bottom of the tree, these look even more appealing as well. Imagine the screens just exploding because they were frozen. As far as the leveling difficulty actually goes, this is definitely a harder class to level than the Necromancer. The Necromancer's pets just mitigate so much of the damage for you that this would be a bit more of an advanced caster to level, but not by a big margin or anything. I don't want to make it sound like this was as difficult as leveling a Druid or Barbarian in the early levels, because it was not at all. In fact, out of the gate, I would say that Sorc was probably my second fastest kill of that starting boss at the end of the tutorial. Like, we breezed through it pretty quick. Resurrected Malice. Oh, this is actually a perfect example because this is the tutorial boss. So you see these little chains, these little projectiles that he's shooting out that are coming towards me kind of softly. This was completely eliminated by our Necromancer pets. I did not have to interface with this mechanic even a little bit. And one downside to this setup as well is that bosses cannot be frozen. So a lot of our benefits from clearing trash all of a sudden get shut down here. That doesn't happen with Necromancers. If a Necromancer has a detonate dead skill setup, he can continue to just make bodies on a boss without that boss dying. It's just fundamentally different. Where I have part of my kit removed from play here because of the boss's immunities. Now, that being said, there is a legendary that makes it so if you cannot freeze a boss, they just take increased damage. And we are gaining the benefit of that right now. Even with my main shtick of my class being taken away, I hope you could tell that our damage to this boss is still totally fine. When the ads spawn, we can still use our crazy clear against them to take them out before they're even a threat. And we were able to push through the majority of these phases on the boss with relatively little harm being done to us. There's still potions on the ground at the end of the day. We do have our emergency button. If a bunch of these projectiles were colliding on me at the same time, we can use that there. But more or less, the ice shield should be enough to keep us alive. Overall, the Sorc has a bunch of different play styles. Some are super off the wall. We should have 2 build guide videos up on the channel from the beta, and this is a class I am very interested in covering once the game fully releases. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button and keep an eye out for some more Diablo. I still have half an hour to play. I'm going to stay busy.